Get whatever makes you comfortable and
Yeah.
prepare to hear some good discussion. And, Ben and I have been working at this here for about 10 years, and we've gathered a lot of information by talking to all the guests. And we're going to get into, what that meant and how many people we've actually seen here at Rythmia and why we know that we're the leading experts on this and on these topics in the world. And there's a good reason for that. It has to do with the quantity of people we've seen and the regulations that we've worked with in the Costa Rican government. So we're the authority on this in the world, and we're happy to be able to share this information with you.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's actually really historic and epic that we're able to exist and thrive and grow as an organization, Rythmia, as a medically licensed facility. And it is really, really interesting when you start to talk to people in the larger plant medicine and psychedelic communities all over the world. This is the gold standard. This is the gold standard in the preparation, integration, set and setting, the whole experience. And it's record breaking in the amount of people that we've actually been able to serve and the number of ceremonies that we've been able to facilitate here. It's a big deal.
It is. And, it's interesting as you say that, because it's like, most people with their psychedelic experiences, they're in someone's living room.
Yeah. they're at an Airbnb in Pasadena.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then for the select few that are resilient enough and adventurous enough, they've ventured off into the jungles of Central and Southern, South America. And that is a really cool experience, very unique for a lot of people, but not practical for most. So Rythmia is such an amazing place because we are a licensed medical facility. We are a wellness retreat, and we offer all these modalities that we're going to get into. And it's a really great place to have your first experience or your, 100th experience. And you're going to see why from our discussion tonight.
Yeah. And also because it's in Costa Rica, right? And it is a beautiful country.
Yeah, that's true. And Dr. Mariana is a Costa Rican resident, citizen, and blood of Costa Rica, right?
I am. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And this is, one of the happiest countries in the world. The people are amazing, and they're beautiful. And this country reflects the people as well. And it's just a wonderful place to be. And I'm blessed to be here, to be honest. And I've been all over Latin America my whole life. Grew up in Los Angeles and visited all of parts of different Latin American countries, and they're all beautiful and wonderful in their own way. But Costa Rica has a very unique spot because of the eco-friendly environment and the blue zone area that we have Rythmia located in.
Right. Yeah. And the people as well. Everyone here is really nice and very comforting. So, yeah. So maybe we'll get started on the webinar tonight. I think we have enough people to get started. So yeah, welcome for everyone that has been joining us. Thank you for all the questions also that you have submitted. This is a webinar that hopefully is going to be a series. So this is the first of a few. And it is about everything you want to know about ayahuasca, but are too afraid to ask. So a lot of questions, interesting topics. So stay tuned. And also remember that throughout the webinar, you can also put in your questions in the Q&A feature in the toolbar. So, and if you're joining us from Facebook as well, you can put it in the comment section. And at the end, we'll try to get to some of your questions. If we're not able to, don't worry, because we'll send out an email throughout the week responding to every question that was submitted, and also a recording from our session, okay? So with us today, we have Dr. Jeff McNairy and Ben Decker and myself, Dr. Mariana. So, well, I'm the holistic manager of Rythmia, and I'm actually a medical doctor. I studied med school here in Costa Rica. I am a Pilates and yoga instructor, and I am a breathwork facilitator as well. And Dr. Jeff is our chief medical officer, and he has a doctorate in psychology and a master's degree in public health, and has been working in the healthcare for over 30 years now. So Ben is also a renowned meditation teacher, interfaith theosophical spiritual advisor, and 4-time best-selling author with his book, Practical Meditation for Beginners. And also he's the host of the Modern Spirituality Show. And he also is a plant medicine integration coach and a recurring guest speaker here at Rythmia. So welcome both of you, and thank you for being here. Super excited to dive in.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah,
Excited.
super stoked. This is one of my favorite things to talk about.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's
get
go.
into the questions.
Beautiful. Let's do it. So, well, as you have seen, ayahuasca is really interesting how it has been going on throughout a lot of years now and in the jungle, our ancestors. But it is recently that has been popping up in podcasts, in Netflix documentaries. So, Dr. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about why ayahuasca is so popular?
You know, my background in healthcare, working in mental health, working in a therapeutic environment for many, many years. I worked with people that have depression and anxiety and trauma and addiction and all different of issues that they're going through. And the model that I was taught as a psychologist when I was training was a medical model, which is about symptomology and about healing symptoms of conditions, and also medication model, which is giving people pills and prescriptions to help them move through a difficult emotion. And what I noticed in working with all different types of people over the last 30 years is that those methods are not really effective at resolving the underlying causes of what they're going through. And people at the end of the day are still upset about their life. They are no longer having tools to use because they've become numb through the meds they've been on for decades. And the therapeutic interventions that are available to them are expensive and often out of reach. So the reason I believe ayahuasca is becoming popular is because it's a very effective therapeutic tool that is accessible to people in a way that is very quickly efficient. And also people are disillusioned with the Western model. They want something that empowers them. They don't want to be told by a bunch of so-called experts what they should be doing and why their life is so messed up. They want to become empowered, and they want to have personal sovereignty and to be able to move through life with their own decision-making process. And that's what ayahuasca helps facilitate, is that it's self-empowerment. So I believe people are just getting fed up with the Western medical model, and they're looking to alternative solutions, which ayahuasca is a great one.
Right. Yeah. People are now looking for so many alternative things. And most of those, like you have already covered. Ben, can you tell us a little bit of some benefits of ayahuasca as well? Because a lot of participants wanted to know, like, specific benefits that maybe you have seen throughout your journey in ayahuasca.
For sure. And I just want to touch on the previous question also. In addition to people being disillusioned by the Western modern medical model, I think that another reason ayahuasca is so popular today is that there's a global spiritual awakening taking place. So with the advent of the internet, we have so much more information. We're communicating a lot more effectively, especially across international borders. We're learning languages more easily. We're learning about each other's culture more easily. And so we've now got access to ayahuasca, which we didn't really have access to in the same way before the internet. So that's a huge part of it. And the internet is facilitating a space where we can, when we have these big spiritual questions, which depression and anxiety can bring us to, they can grief, heartbreak, illness, all different challenges in our life can bring us to these big spiritual questions. I think that we take them to the internet because we're looking and we're seeking, and we're finding that there are all different kinds of truths in other religions and other spiritual traditions and other cultures outside of the ones that we were born in. And I think ayahuasca is something that clicks in a really natural way with a lot of different belief systems. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so popular. And I also think that's one of the benefits of it. We often talk about healing from origin wounds or our earliest childhood traumas through the process of right preparation for ayahuasca, right set and setting for ayahuasca, and right integration for ayahuasca. So the whole process. It's not just ayahuasca has that benefit. It's that ayahuasca done correctly has that benefit. So healing childhood traumas, even recent traumas. The traumas don't need to be childhood traumas. Also, perspective shifts. We see things in our lives a certain way. We navigate our relationships in certain ways. We navigate our finances and our careers and all of our goals in certain ways. And the ayahuasca opens up our minds in every possible crazy way. And it's almost like shuffling the deck. It's almost like shuffling all of our ideas and experiences and starting almost over again, creating a possibility where we can create new habits, new patterns of operating. The neuroplasticity is super engaged when you're working with the medicine. We know that neuroplasticity is responsible for making our behaviors really efficient. So all of our most efficient behaviors are habitual behaviors. Not all of them are healthy. Not all of them are really supporting our ultimate well-being. And when we come to do ayahuasca, especially in the context of the preparation, setting, and integration that we offer at Rythmia, that neuroplasticity engagement can create the possibility for really, really deep unconscious beliefs and really long held habits and unhealthy patterns to be eliminated, rewired, and changed.
A big struggle that I dealt with my patients in Los Angeles when I had my private practice was that exact thing. Is that the habits that they had become accustomed to, whether it was an addiction that was problematic for them or just negative self-talk, and just feeling that they don't deserve to be happy and that kind of like depressive rumination modality. I found that to get someone out of that way of thinking and to adjust a new neuron pathway is really complicated when you're using just talk therapy. And it can happen, but it just takes a really long time. And that's what's so beautiful about ayahuasca in particular is because it unlocks our brain's ability to form new neuron pathways that lead to different emotions, different beliefs, and different behaviors. And that's why it's so impactful.
Yeah, you said that really perfectly. It unlocks our brain's ability. So neuroplasticity is a quality that the brain always has, but it's not always engaged. And so ayahuasca engages it really, really actively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, love the way you said that.
Ayahuasca, it's like the catalyst. It's like it just brings you, that's why we sometimes say here, it's like 10 years of talk therapy in like a week.
Correct. Yeah. And if you're a so average therapist, it's like 20 years of therapy. Like in everyone's life, we have these goals that we want to do. We want to be successful. We want to be connected. We want to have a happy life, but we have our biases and we have our mental blocks and we have our resistance to these things that a lot of them are subconscious and a lot of them are from childhood. So what happens with ayahuasca is you participate in a ceremony, you drink the ayahuasca, and all of a sudden those roadblocks are out of the way. They're cleared out of the way, and you see what you need to do and what you need to accomplish and what steps you need to take to make those things happen for yourself. That's the beauty of this process to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And that's why so many people are interested in this, because they have been, because of what society says or childhood trauma, like they have been in these blocks that with talk therapy, it can take a lot of time. So again, it's like a catalyst. And I think that's why people are looking into alternative modalities, like into psychedelics and ayahuasca. So that takes me to another question, that it's what is the difference between ayahuasca and other psychedelics?
You want to go for it?
We're both good at this one.
I mean,
yeah. So I can give a little bit about why ayahuasca is a unique plant medicine. A unique psychedelic.
Go there and then I'll go. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So the active ingredient in ayahuasca is dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT. And DMT is a natural substance that is already in our bodies. And it's already in all living things, plants, mammals, everything has DMT in it. Some plants have a lot of DMT in it, more than others. And what DMT is for in our own human bodies is it's a molecule of connection. It's a molecule that is released into the bloodstream during various important moments in our life. The first time it happens is when we're born. It's when we go through our birthing process. DMT is released into the bloodstream. And it's also when we die. As we're dying, it's also released into the bloodstream. It's also released during moments of lucid dreams and moments of connection. And if you ever had like a deja vu, like, oh my gosh, I've been here before, or I feel like I'm connected to this waterfall I'm looking at here on the Big Island in Hawaii. Those are moments of DMT, and they call it the God molecule in some theoretical backgrounds. They also believe in the indigenous communities that it stems from the pineal gland that comes out and connects us to nature and to everything in the universe. So that's kind of like an esoteric explanation. But what I've found ayahuasca to do, the DMT molecule, is that when I take a little extra into my body through the ayahuasca ceremony, all of those connections are enhanced. And the uniqueness of ayahuasca is that it's a part of us already. So other psychedelics, like I'm sure Ben and I will debate a bit about this, like, for example, LSD, psilocybin, ketamine, which is synthetic, other psychedelics, which are all have really good purposes to them. None of those substances are already in your body. So DMT is unique in that it's already a part of us. And for me, that's a big, important part of this whole process.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think DMT being a natural part of our process makes the ayahuasca experience feel more organic. It feels like a lucid dream, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about like the spontaneous enlightenment experiences that you kind of get through meditation, the realizations that happen in breath work. They all have a really intimate relationship with the realizations that come through in ayahuasca. Comparing the different medicines together and the different ayahuascas together, you brought up a good point. Ayahuasca's under the category of totally natural. There are some psychedelics that are synthetic, that are not natural, that will have like a really reliable, exactly the same sort of experience. And even if you have an extraction of DMT, it's very different than having an ayahuasca experience. We sometimes hear in the indigenous communities that ayahuasca is not something you're going to go do, but it's someone you're going to go meet. Mm-hmm. And who you're going to go meet is really you. It's really a higher part of yourself, a higher aspect of yourself. Terence McKenna, who is an amazing advocate for psychedelics, he used to say that each psychedelic has a spiritual core message that it has for people when they're working with the medicine. And ayahuasca, he said, it's connection. And so that's the same thing you said about DMT.
Yep.
And that's one of the things we often experience in ayahuasca is we're connected to everything, which is almost the exact opposite to like ketamine, which is a disassociative. So it's something that'll actually make you feel disconnected from everything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And the thing about those synthetic psychedelics, like Ben said, the reason why those have become more popular in Western culture is because they can be measured to an exact amount, and they can be studied clinically in an easier way. And there's also less contraindications with those medicines than there are with ayahuasca, and that's something we'll get into in this discussion. But the part that I love about ayahuasca and DMT is that when you participate in a ceremony, you feel like you're at home. It's something familiar. And it's not something like, well, this is so outside my way of thinking that it just doesn't make any sense. It's like there's a familiarity to it that's comforting.
Yeah. I really like what you said, Ben, about ayahuasca being connection, because that is definitely how it feels, and how it is like getting to know someone, and that someone is yourself. So that is beautiful, and that's completely how it feels. And now that Dr. Jeff, you were talking about the DMT, I want to tap a little deeper on that, because a lot of people also that have this rational sides of them want to know what happens to their brains when they're taking ayahuasca.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to drink just a solution of DMT by itself, the enzymes in your stomach would destroy it. I mean, nothing would really happen. So the reason why ayahuasca is an interesting drink is because it has two components. It has a vine, which is they call it the ayahuasca vine. And then it has the leafy DMT-based plant that's regional, where the shamans that make the medicine live. So the vine is common in all the ayahuasca, and that is what we call the monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So the vine has something called an MAOI in it. And why is that important? Because MAOIs, when you ingest them into the stomach, so you take it orally, it turns off the stomach enzymes, and it allows the absorption of the DMT through the intestines and the stomach lining. And so that's where it gets into the bloodstream. And then when DMT is in your bloodstream, it does a lot of different things. One of the things it does is it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it goes into your brain, and it taps into the amygdala. And that part of the brain is where we store our subconscious memories and emotions. And if I was in a traumatic experience in my childhood, I was attacked by a dog, or I was really scared by some bully, I had to survive in that moment. My emotions got in the way. I didn't want to feel scared. I couldn't, because I couldn't run very well. I didn't want to freeze and get bit by the dog. So I had to act and grab a broom and keep the dog away. So behaviorally, I need to get through that traumatic moment. But the emotions that are present during trauma, they, for survival, get shoved into the amygdala part of the brain. And that's where they stay until the trauma is over. And then what I'm supposed to do, but no one ever does, because we don't learn this in a Western model, is I'm supposed to process that traumatic event later. And people just don't, because, oh, you don't talk about that dog. It was scary, and just forget about it. And we just move on. And so a lifetime of avoiding the trauma emotions that are shoved into the amygdala from all the different things we've been through, eventually the amygdala is full, and it wants to release these emotions. And so the DMT, when it goes into the brain, it taps into that part of our brain, and it connects it to the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is a part of the brain where our logical, rational, conscious self is located. And that's where, as Ben talked about with the synaptic plasticity, there's new awarenesses and new clarity coming, and there's a release of the emotions. So the monoamine oxidase inhibitor actually allows for memories, visuals, and an emotional release. And that's the part that comes out. The DMT also is absorbed into various cells in the body that might be problematic. Cancer cells. There's a theory about how it starts the sigma-1 receptor from working again, which kicks out the fermentation process of a cancerous cell and allows the mitochondria to start working again, which causes cell apoptosis, which is cell death, and it reduces tumor cells. So there's all these different studies and theories going on. It adjusts our DNA through an epigenetic process that helps us tap into our subconscious and the way we store emotional memories in our certain genetic code. So there's all these different things happening with the DMT that are really exciting. And it balances, the part I love is it balances dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine receptors. So if my dopamine receptors are not working very well, maybe it's genetic, maybe it's environmental, maybe I have a drug addiction and I've fried my dopamine receptors, my mood is not good. I'm depressed, and I'm in the blues, and I feel upset, and I can't quite get out of it. And so what happens with ayahuasca and DMT is it goes into the neurons, and it recalibrates the dopamine receptors. And the analogy I like to give, I call it priming the pump. So if you've ever been out on a farm and there's an old pump out in the middle of the field, and the farmer, goes out and tries to get it to pump water, and it hasn't pumped water in decades. What the farmer does is they put water down into the pump, and they start pumping with a little bit of water, and then eventually the water comes out, and it's an amazing pump again. That's the same analogy for the neurons with DMT. It primes the pump for dopamine and serotonin and resets and recalibrates your mood. So that's why this is a really beautiful medicine that sticks once you get into the process of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that excellent explanation, because there's so many people that just stick to the visual part of DMT, like this psychedelic experience. But it's really interesting how there's all this other part, of how we even like store emotions since we were kids. And we have to move that, right? Because at the end it's stagnant energy that we have to be moving. And it's interesting how also we have been like society tells us, or even like Western sciences say that like just step aside instead of like going and facing your trauma, right? That's when where you actually get to heal it. Like that's the easiest way to face it, right?
People
So
often wonder, they say, do I have to relive my trauma? Right. We get that question a lot. You know,
Right.
people get nervous. Like, I don't want to go back to my abusive childhood and experience that again. Right. So I don't know. I have a set answer I tell, but do you ever have an answer for somebody that has that question?
Well, let's hear your answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is, if you're aware of your childhood trauma, you don't have to revisit it. You don't have to go live that again. You've already processed probably a lot of it. And if you've been in therapy about it or you've worked on it, that part's resolved. This helps get the last edge and turn that corner so you can get past it. Now, if you have no remembrance of any trauma or anything like that, you've blocked it, you know, which we do for survival and stuff, then what happens is it shows you that something occurred. And it brings some awareness to you that, you know what, as a child, you were in danger. You had some fear. There was some unpredictability. There was some instability. And just those things alone can create a traumatic, closed off, non-trusting adult lifestyle. And so we don't need to know the details. We don't need to know exactly what happened, who did it, why. We don't need to do that. We're not detectives. It's not important. What's important is that you know that something occurred, and as a result, you've lived in a guarded way. And so that's the part that you can then work on, is how to build trust and how to open up and be vulnerable in a way that's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. If I could add to that, one of the things that we have to remember about trauma is that trauma is not what happened. Trauma is how we responded to it. And how that reaction, whatever you were feeling at that time, how that imprinted and became how you live as an adult, you know, like what Jeff was just saying.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes people will come in and they'll say, I know something happened. I want more information on it. That's a tricky one, because your little brain at that time didn't necessarily gather all that information. You didn't necessarily at the time even have a lot of conscious data on the moment. And a lot of times with the medicine, you can't say, I would like this exact thing, please. You can't say, I want this entire memory back. I want to fully remember that. You may be able to ask that. You may sometimes be able to get it. But what the medicine is trying to do is create wholeness. That DMT connection quality, it's really about wholeness and being brought to a space of wholeness. So you could actually go into an ayahuasca experience and have old traumas that you're not fully aware of totally worked on, even unconsciously. Sometimes people will come in and they won't even have an active conscious memory of what happened in ceremony. We call it a nada. And then they'll go out in their lives and they'll start to realize like something changed. I'm starting to actually trust men a little bit more, or I'm starting to learn to be a little bit more patient. I'm becoming aware of the ways that I've been controlling or impatient.
My anger is gone, for example.
Right. My anger is gone. Yep. There was someone who came just this last week. It was her third time, I think. And she said, I thought nothing happened. I knew I felt better, but I thought nothing really happened. And then when she went home, she said she realized she was smiling all the time. And she was afraid to smile before.
Whoa.
When she had a childhood trauma, she didn't like her teeth. Someone made fun of her teeth. She wouldn't like to smile. And she internalized it, wouldn't even smile when she was doing her favorite thing. She loves roller coasters, couldn't even laugh on roller coasters, would hold it in. And she said after that first time, she realized, oh, the miracle was actually, I got my smile back.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because it can be from like things that we don't even know, and like small like that can become like a big snowball, and then just things that you know that happen. So it can range like in either way. So that's also a beautiful part of it. And we have talked a little bit on like what the benefits are and what ayahuasca is, but maybe Ben, can you tell me, or people sometimes ask maybe am I a candidate to drink ayahuasca, or who should consider taking ayahuasca?
Well, first there's the medical consideration there, and I'll let Jeff cover that part. So there's definitely things medically that make everybody either a good candidate or not. But let's say you are a good medical candidate. It's really good for people who are at a crossroads in their life, who are really wanting to grow, wanting some kind of breakthrough. It's a great thing if you just came out of a challenge, going into a challenge. But what we always say is you're called to it. So you know when you're called to it. A lot of times people will come, they'll feel called, they'll come, they'll have a miracle, they'll have an amazing experience, and then they'll try really hard to bring another friend or another family member, and they'll kind of want to almost talk them into it. If someone's talking you into it, you might not be the right candidate, you know. It's all about you feeling called to it, you know. So sometimes it comes because a friend or a family member brought in the invitation. I got an invitation from Brandy and Jerry. That's how I came in, and and I was hesitant. I was like, that's a hard no.
Well, the thing is with Ben in particular, and this is a great example for our audience, is that Ben had a really, really good meditation practice that he had for himself that he loved and was really good at, and it was meeting his needs. So it's almost like, why do you need to do ayahuasca, right? Like, what's the point, right? But I remember that time, you know, it just took things to the next level, I think, for you.
Big time. It deepened everything, broke everything open. And the big change for me was I became less serious about everything. I was so serious and everything had to be perfect. I still have a high quality, a high standard for everything that I do and everything that I create. But my outside in forced rigidity and forced seriousness is gone. People tell me that I seem younger now than years ago when I started working with ayahuasca. And I'm so much younger. I'm so much more like flexible and chill and healthy.
Yeah.
And also we had some questions about specific diseases that if ayahuasca can help them. We're going to be covering that on our questions on the email that we're going to be sending out. So don't worry, because we're a little short on time, but you'll be getting those responses as well.
Mariana, did you want me to talk a little bit about the medical requirements?
Yeah, please. And also, if you could tap into also who shouldn't be taking ayahuasca or the contraindications, please.
Okay. Perfect. So I just want to preface this by kind of what Ben was saying. It's like there are a lot of modalities in the world and at your fingertips that can be very helpful for you. Ayahuasca is one of them for some people. And there are some people that should not participate in the ayahuasca session. And the reason is because, as I was talking a little bit about before, the monoamine oxidase inhibitor component of ayahuasca unfortunately has a lot of contraindications with it. So if you have been diagnosed with depression and you're on a medication, an antidepressant, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI, SSRIs contraindicate with monoamine oxidase inhibitors. So you cannot be on antidepressant medication and drink ayahuasca. You have to have at least 30 days free and clear of SSRI medication. So that's one contraindication. Another are benzodiazepines. And generally speaking, all the psychotropic medication is contraindicated with ayahuasca. And so psychotropic medication are antidepressants, anti-anxieties, antipsychotics, and all the different meds that are used to enhance mood and that are often given by a psychiatrist. So sometimes it's only 14 days off. For example, if somebody takes Xanax, you know, to sleep or for anxiety, they need to have 14 days off of that. However, tapering off some of these meds is very important to do. And stopping cold turkey is not recommended. It's also very dangerous. And we don't give medical advice to people that aren't here as patients and checked in with us with our medical doctors like Dr. Mariana. We have a medical team. But before people get to Rythmia, they have to work with their physician and their prescribing doctors to come off of these meds and to manage it in a way that's appropriate. Now, Sometimes there's psychiatric conditions that are not appropriate for ayahuasca. The two that come to mind right off the bat are schizophrenia, and the other one is bipolar 1. Now, bipolar 1 is when people are in a manic mode, a lot of anxiety, hovering really high with mania, and then occasionally they drop down into a depressed state for a very short period of time, and then they jump back up to a manic phase. Those people are usually heavily medicated. Now, there's exceptions where people aren't medicated and they're not diagnosed with it, and they're kind of like living a very unsuccessful life. And so those people as well, like anybody that has that diagnosis or exhibits those behaviors, shouldn't take ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is a serotonin agonist, meaning it creates a serotonin surge that's part of the chemical reaction of the neuroplasticity and the DMT response. So that's why if somebody already has a lot of serotonin naturally in the body and in their brain, we don't want to surge that too much where it could cause a manic episode. So those are some contraindications related to psychotropic meds. Another couple quick ones are heart-related issues. If people have arrhythmias, they have a history of strokes, they have any sort of cardiac issues, like they've had a history of a heart attack, they've had a pacemaker placed in their heart. Any of this stuff is not good for ayahuasca because it can cause further heart problems. There's also autoimmune conditions, also cancers. Like if people are late stage or middle stage cancer, we have to look at it case by case, and we have to see, all right, is the immuno function compromised in the person? Has the cancer spread to various organ systems? Because we don't want to have your body take focus off of the healing that it's doing with the cancer and move to something to try to break it down chemically in your body, which is the ayahuasca. So we have to go case by case, but usually late stage cancer, certain severe autoimmune disorders, and some other things that are more like physical related, we have to look at it as a contraindication, but possibly look at it case by case to see if you're qualified for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for stating that, because also a lot of people and participants that are here are concerned about safety, right? Like ayahuasca safety, and a lot of people hear about bad trips. So can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about that?
Bad trips. What's a bad trip on ayahuasca?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, why don't you start with that one?
Okay.
Bad trip.
Well, let me just put the audience at ease and say this. Okay, I study everything that has to do with ayahuasca that I ever can get my hands on in the world. Okay, so about whether it's journal articles, which are very few, or studies that come out, or press releases, or anything that has to do with ayahuasca, I'm on top of it and I'm reading it and studying it. Okay, so what I have found is there's 3 reasons that people can have a bad trip or have a bad experience on ayahuasca. Number 1, somebody in the ayahuasca session freaks out and harms another guest. That's the number 1 danger of an ayahuasca ceremony. Now, why is that not an issue at Rythmia? Because we screen our candidates very, very closely. We are going through tons of medical checks and balances before even getting to Costa Rica. You can't just show up here and drink ayahuasca. You have to go through a lot of hoops to be able to be here. So the clientele are a great group of people, safe and balanced and stable and ready to do the work. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, they're on their back and they choke on their vomit and they they get asphyxiated. Okay, so that has not happened at Rythmia either, but that's the number 2 reason in the world of ayahuasca. And so we have a very high ratio of staff to guests. Sometimes it's 4-to-1, sometimes it's 3-to-1, but it's always at least 6-to-1. So for every 6 guests at a minimum, there's a staff member watching you. And the ratio is usually even higher in a better way, more staff to guests. So if you're on your back and you start snoring, they'll move you to the side, they'll come talk to you, they'll wake you up, right? So that's the other thing. And the third thing is cardiac issues. But like I mentioned, we screen for cardiac issues. We have EKG machines here. We're interviewing the people on their cardiac history. We're really getting into the medical side of this. Now, a bad trip, as Ben said, like, what does that even mean, right? Well, this is the thing. If I have unresolved trauma, if I have childhood trauma that I've never looked at, and it's really scary, but it was a long time ago. I'm in my 50s. And if I had something that freaked me out when I was 5 or 6 years old, I probably don't really remember it, right? And maybe I do, maybe I don't. But during an ayahuasca session, that fear of something that I was afraid of or I went through, it surfaces. Now, if I don't remember what that is, my prefrontal cortex during a ceremony is trying to figure it out. What is that? It's trying to remember, what were you afraid of? What is causing this fear? And if it can't figure it out for whatever reason, because it's a long time ago, it will attach that fear to a vehicle of something that you are absolutely afraid of, and it will leave your body. So I use my wife as an example. What is she afraid of? Spiders. She hates spiders. So she's in the wrong country, by the way. So in her ayahuasca session, she had childhood trauma. She was afraid her parents were going to abandon her, which was like not the case. They were great parents, loving, but she had this irrational fear. So during the ayahuasca session, this fear came up, but she doesn't remember what it was because it was kind of like based on nothing. And so what happened as a vehicle to get rid of that fear? 1 million spiders in the Maloka, spiders everywhere. And she got freaked out. And then she remembered, oh, okay, this isn't real. This is just a vehicle to get rid of this emotional trauma. So a bad trip is just a vehicle of getting fear out of you, getting uncertainty out of you, getting depression, anxiety, whatever it might be, regret, guilt, shame, any of these things that are hard. It's a vehicle to get it out. And that's what a bad trip is, in my opinion.
Right. And it's like there's in ayahuasca, the real bad trips are if something goes wrong, like you said at first, which almost never happens here. You know, we have a really great team, very attentive, like you were saying. But the thing is, like, if you've never done psychedelics before and you're hearing people talk about psychedelics and scary things happen, like 1 million spiders in the Maloka, one of the most important things to realize is there's no such thing as a bad vision or a bad trip or a bad emotion that comes up. It's all just is what it is. You're not getting anything new when you come into ceremony. Nothing new is coming in. It's all something that already exists within you that's being brought to your awareness. So we sometimes say that the medicine is bitter, then it's sweet. So it's not always in that order, and it's not always in that way, but we sometimes hear that, you know, in the indigenous communities, we sometimes hear that phrase. It's bitter, then it's sweet. And what that means is it's bitter on the tongue, but also you are oftentimes facing the biggest, heaviest, scariest fears. If you're super scared of spiders, there's a good chance they're coming. They're coming in an ayahuasca ceremony. But that's not the whole experience, and that's not everything. It's there so you can face that fear, you know, and let it pass over and through you, and realize how strong you are, regardless of the fear, you know.
And my wife now will get a piece of paper and scoop a spider and let it outside now, which is what is unheard of before.
Nice.
So that was it was a healing process for her, the vehicle as well as the childhood trauma, both.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a healing. So that's what's so important about coming somewhere like Rythmia when you're doing something as delicate and as intense as ayahuasca, because I've said it 100 times, preparation, set and setting, and integration. That whole process all has to be together, because you're going to be held in the space of what might seem like a bad trip to someone who doesn't understand ayahuasca, doesn't understand this work, doesn't understand the medicine. They may think, oh my gosh, how scary, that was so intense. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's sometimes intense. But very often, once you do face that fear, which we always recommend, go towards what's scary. If you're given 2 doors, one has a pink rainbow unicorn on it, and one has like some kind of vicious monster on it, go towards the monster. Go towards the scary thing in an ayahuasca ceremony. That's what's going to get you the biggest catharsis and the biggest healing. And there is a psychosomatic, a mind-body catharsis that happens. You were talking about the emotional release that happens. There's, you know, some people may say, oh, a bad trip may be if you have to vomit or something. Here's the thing. There's all kinds of stuff you've heard: vomiting, shitting, crying, all these things that can happen in ayahuasca ceremony. We have to reframe that, because that's actually not a bad trip. Because what you want is that release that Jeff was talking about. You want your entire nervous system that has the cellular memory and the muscle memory and the nervous memory of all those traumas and dramas that you've been through. You want that psychosomatic mind-body release. And it almost, for me, I love a good barf on ayahuasca.
It's a release. It's a release.
Yeah,
it's a release.
You're releasing it.
You store emotion in your body, and emotions take on a physical attribute, especially like if you have anxiety in your life and you don't express it, you don't let it out, you hold it in. And when you drink ayahuasca, the ayahuasca goes in and it finds this anxiety where you're storing it, usually in your lower back, your upper shoulders, maybe your neck, and it shakes it loose and you get rid of it. And that's a purge. And it's a beautiful thing. It's something that people look forward to once they understand this concept.
Right. And the more medicine you do, the more you look forward to that catharsis and that release.
Yeah.
So
and that's one of the things. Yeah, sorry.
Just saying it's not bad.
That's one of the things also that people were asking a lot about being sick, and all of what you said is basically that it's just a purge, and how there's different types of purges, right? Not only the vomiting, the going to the bathroom, but also the shaking, the sweating. There's different types of purging, and it is all about this psychosomatic release, right? This emotional component, releasing this energy that has been stagnant in your body. Yeah. And so for our last question, what sets Rythmia apart?
This guy.
This guy. Ben.
Jeff sets Rythmia apart. But really, actually, the three people here, the holistic program, the medical license, and me.
Yeah, exactly. I think that what sets us apart too, aside from those awesome people, right, is we've seen the most people that I've heard of in any facility. We've seen over 15,000 guests through here, and we have a medical license with the Costa Rican Ministry of Health, which means that we have to follow certain medical protocols. We're audited and site visited constantly. And I welcome them, and they love us, by the way. Yeah. Like they've renewed our license, like everything's going really well. And so we have a Western medical support system that people are familiar with and accustomed to, mixed with a shamanic, holistic, indigenous healing modality. And so that is what's beautiful about Rythmia. And we have this certain way of doing things. We have 3 intentions that we teach the guests: show me who I've become, merge me back with my soul at all costs, and heal my heart. And we have a way to show you how to obtain those intentions. And we have a lot of support here. We have Ben, who counsels everybody if they're in a moment of crisis or a confusion. And we have a lot of people that are here to support you while you're going through. We have classes, meditation, yoga, plant integration classes where you try to incorporate like what the heck happened the night before, and you kind of get context for it. We have the most amazing food. It's farm to table, super healthy, really good. There's no cow products. I eat cow products, but not here, not Rythmia. So it's very, very healthy here. And it's a beautiful location, and the staff are amazing. And that's what sets us apart from most other places, in my opinion.
I mean, we also have a spa. We have an amazing spa with a steam room and a hot tub and a cold plunge and a volcanic mud bath. We also have a beautiful labyrinth. So for me, as a meditation person, there's a beautiful mindful walking practice that you can do at the labyrinth. We have these amazing Buddha statues that you can meditate with. We even have a Jesus.
Yeah,
we have 3 Buddhas, 1 Jesus, 4 or 5 Easter Island heads. Yeah, it's actually a really it sounds like I'm saying those things like a joke, but actually it's a really big part of it for me to walk around this beautiful property that's pristinely maintained, perfectly maintained, with these beautiful Buddhas everywhere, being able to come enjoy the pool, enjoy cabanas at the pool, and all of those kinds of things, and also the breathwork classes are
very
amazing.
Powerful. Breath work is, as Dr. Mariana runs our breathwork program. And to me, breathwork is equal in comparison to the outcomes of ayahuasca. It is an amazing tool that you can use at home. And we teach you those things here. We teach you the skill of the breathwork. And that's a really great thing that we offer on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just think, what sets us apart? Look, you get here and there's a beautiful, nice clinic, a very clean clinic that you feel very safe in, with a great staff, very, very professional. All nurses, all top tier professional, everything. And it feels super safe. They answer all your questions. You have a real medical intake before you do anything. Orientation, all the classes, everything is all taught by people who are experienced in the medicine. It's a very, and once it comes to the actual ceremonies, our medicine team, these are very experienced practitioners, very experienced healers. This is their entire life. They're very committed to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things, is that our community, the holistic team, our medical team, even the team in the kitchen, and honestly, our landscapers, we have amazing landscapers. Our team, we have attracted the best people in the world, and it's such a top tier 5-star experience. I've been able to, I had my first ayahuasca experience here, but I've had over 100 ceremonies. At least 50 of them were here, but many of them were in 8 other countries, where I went to a lot of different places and really saw what was out there, and have wonderful relationships and had amazing experiences. This is the home base for me, though, easily. When you go in to do the actual ceremony, there are many places out there that will not give you a pillow, a blanket, a mattress, a bucket, and a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that sets us apart, right? Like the community that we have here, people working housekeeping, landscape, holistic, like everything here, and also like our medical license. That's a big one as well. So yeah, thank you. Now we're gonna open the questions that guests have been asking through our webinar. So we're gonna start with a question by Shirley. She's aged 62 and is asking, what is the age of the older person who has participated in Rythmia?
96 years old. We had a 96-year-old woman come and did amazing. She did so well that she extended another 2 weeks. So she was here 3 weeks in a row, drinking ayahuasca, and did amazing. And that was our oldest client that we've had. Yeah, and it did amazing.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Great role model.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Ollie. How long does it take to recover after the ceremony? And she says, can I fly back to my country, or how many days after can I be okay to go back?
Well, our program is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. You have ceremony. Friday morning, you come out of the last ceremony, but you don't leave until Saturday or Sunday. So everyone is ready to leave. By the time they leave, everyone can go. People come from all over the world. You don't leave until you're ready to go. And so how long would you say on average is the actual recovery, though?
I would say, just to kind of break it down, like by increments, like if you were to drink 1 cup of ayahuasca in 2.5 hours, the half-life is over. So you peak and you come down within a 2.5 hour frame. So up and then down, that's the half-life. So the next day, you're tired, you're trying to recover, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're drinking fluids, and you're going to a class or 2. And then you're doing some breath work that night, Friday evening. And then Saturday, some people travel and fly that day. And then Sunday, some people travel and fly that day. And most people start work on Monday again. So the integration process of actually letting all this stuff settle in and sink in can take, several months. But the logistics of, I think what she's asking about in the question is like, is it safe to travel and can she get on a plane? Absolutely. Yes, right. Absolutely. And if for some reason you feel like you're not comfortable doing that, we help you transition into an Airbnb or another hotel nearby, or some people extend another week here at Rythmia. So you're definitely ready to go by the weekend. And that's we have it set up like that on purpose. Cause like Ben said, we have people from all over the world coming here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another question from James. Do you have to take ayahuasca multiple times for it to stick, or is it a once and done?
I love that question.
I mean, it's a great question.
I love that question.
I think that something that is so important to remember about ayahuasca is that it's a drop of nature. And so nature has a way of one layer at a time. Nature has a way of gradually growing. And so the truth is, how well you prepare, how well you surrender to the medicine, how well you integrate after, it really is up to the person. So you could have, many people have one or two core key things completely transformed after one experience with ayahuasca, but I would say almost everyone is so moved by it that you're called to come back again annually. Oftentimes that's what we hear a lot, is once a year, or even within just a few months, because they want to go deeper into the experience.
Yeah, and 33% of our guests come back another time, and they're often bringing friends and family, or like Ben said, they're going deeper. I teach a class called The 9, and it gives 9 new intentions for alumni. So there's other things you can go deeper with. There are a lot of people though that come and it's a one and done week, and they're great, and they get tools and they move on and they start incorporating these tools, and they move on and they don't need to do it again. So it really depends on the person, but I agree completely with what Ben said. It's nature. It's multi-layered. You can infinitely peel back knowledge and awareness, right, to become deeper within that. And so this represents that for us.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to have one more because we're running a little bit out of time, but I think this one is an interesting one and an important one, because a lot of people don't know about the intentions, or what do they need to set. So Julie asks, do you need a specific clear intention or just curious?
That's good. That's good. That's good. Well, I mean, and I know you have a great answer. That's a meditation question. I know. Right? so I'll say a little short answer and let Ben wrap it up with a good answer. I'm sure. So you don't need to come with an intention. What I always said in my practice in therapy back in LA is, all I need is a hint of internal motivation, and that motivation can grow once you're working on yourself in this process. So, however, a lot of people do come with intentions. They come with goals. They come with clarity that they want to explore. So it's great to have intentions and to journal those and to write them down and to come with like a preparation. Okay, yes, we teach 3 umbrella intentions that I mentioned earlier that will address those individual intentions you have. But a lot of people, like Ben mentioned earlier in the podcast, if you feel called to this, then just come. Just get here, and you will not regret it. Things will open up for you in ways that you never even thought possible.
Yeah, I feel like the intention is healing. You know, you're called to the medicine for one reason or another. We have our core intentions here. What I love about the 3 intentions that Jeff mentioned earlier that we teach: show me who I've become, merge me back with my soul at all costs, and heal my heart. What I love about those is they represent an articulation of what the medicine does, of what it naturally does. So we're sort of like helping with an intentional infrastructure for what the medicine is naturally going to be doing. Show me who I've become. That's where we sort of have that realization where we realize that that we have some of these unconscious behaviors in our lives. That's that first layer. Then the second one, merge me back with my soul at all costs. That's all about coming back to your original nature before the conditioning or the origin wounds that cause that separation from yourself, where you start to develop the patterns that are now making your life harder than it needs to be. And then that third one, heal my heart. We've all been through heartbreak. And maybe some of us have been heartbreakers. Heartbreak turns you into a heartbreaker. You know, you've heard that phrase, hurt people hurt people. Well, being heartbroken turns you into a heartbreaker a lot of times, you know. And so what I love about the intentions that we have here is we're just sort of helping the mind, helping the intellect, because it's a lot of smart people, smart adults coming in. We're helping that intellect we're helping you wrap your head around the narrative process that the medicine's naturally doing, which is revealing, you know, who you've become, merging you back with your soul and healing your heart. You know, so you can come with any intentions that you want, but you want to release any expectations. We said earlier that ayahuasca is more like going to meet someone than to go do something. Ayahuasca is not something you do, it's someone you meet. And so if you were to go meet someone new and you knew that they were really good at something, would you go in there and be like, I demand that you give me this, give me exactly that gift that you give other people, tell me a joke. Would you say to a comedian, tell me a joke right now? They would, you don't really treat people
kick
that
you out
way.
of the club.
Yeah, you don't really treat people that way. And so because ayahuasca is not something you do, it's someone you meet, the more you have a relaxed energy and openness to what's going to come through. And what I love about our programming is it's class after class after class, opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to just center within yourself. The Buddha statues, the spa, the yoga class, the breathwork class, the workshops, the integration. It's all for you to come back to your original nature. So something that Jerry always says, I don't know where he got it. Maybe the moon told him, but he always says, plant medicine done wrong will answer all of your questions. Plant medicine done right will eliminate the questions.
Mm.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So you can have intentions if you want. And a lot of times you naturally have intentions, but just trust that even if you're not in ceremony, checking all of those off, you kind of have to get into that bigger trust space around what those intentions are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, at the end, it's all about, just having that little seed of curiosity. And as we were saying before, if it calls you, right? A lot of people that come here, they have crazy stories on how they ended up here. And that's because it's like that, right? The medicine somehow starts calling you and you end up here. So, yeah. Okay, so, well, we're about time to finish our webinar. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Jeff and Ben, for being with us here today and for that exciting questioning, answering. And for the people that are still here, just if you have a couple of minutes to go into the link in the Q&A and share a little bit your feedback about today's webinar, because we would really like to keep on doing this and to have a series about it. And also remember that if your question wasn't answered, you are going to receive an email within a week with all the answers and also with the recording of the session. So yeah, thank you all so much. And we really appreciate for you being here.
Look forward to seeing you in Costa Rica.
Yeah, come on down. Vida.